Wonderful. All right. Thank you all for joining us. My name is Molly Swartzoff with Ray and Associates. I'm here helping conduct the forum for Dr. Timothy Gadsden. On behalf of the firm, we're working with your board to select your next superintendent, along with the president, Mr. Michael Collins, who couldn't join us today. We'll be going through and asking a series of questions. But first, I want to hand the mic over to Dr. Gadsden and allow him to introduce himself and give a quick summary of who he is and how he got here, and then we'll jump right into those questions.
So I am Timothy Gadsden, proud son of Timothy Gadsden Jr. and Betty Gadsden, and grandson of Alberta McLeod. I mentioned my 95-year-old grandmother because it was she who predicted that I would be an educator, even when I did not think as I got older that I was going to be. My grandmother would ask me to read to her, her mail, news articles, whatever needed to be read. She would ask me to read to her. And one day, as little boys do, I kind of joked and told her that I couldn't read for her, and she asked why. And I told her because I couldn't read. Well, my grandmother scolded me. She didn't think that was very funny. And she shared a story with me that I wasn't aware of. And that's that when she was a little girl, she had to leave school early to work in the fields of Georgia to help support her family. And because of that, she was pretty much illiterate. And so that was a shock to me as a little boy to know this grandmother that I loved and looked up to had an issue with literacy. And so my grandmother told me that reading was going to open doors for me and that I was one day going to teach others. And so fast forwarding, I went off to college at Florida A&M University and majored in business economics. Just knew I was going to make all the money in corporate America, and I was going to be able to retire early. And of course, I'm from Florida, great place to retire, and I was going to have it made. And going into my junior year of college, the dean of the College of Education called me and several other Black males from across the university to a meeting. And he shared that there was a need for more Black males in education. And of course, we were all bewildered because we weren't ed majors and we didn't know why he was telling us this. But he offered a sweet deal. He said we could keep our major as it was and pick up secondary education courses, and he would pay for our junior and senior year, those of us who wanted to do that. Well, being a business major, that was an excellent deal for me, and I accepted that. Fortunately, I did. I signed a contract with Trust Company Bank upon graduating, and it was a no-compete clause in the contract. And so my mom got sick and I needed to go home, and even though I never worked for Trust Company Bank, they would not let me out of the no-compete contract that I had signed with them. And not being wealthy, I needed a job. And so I was wondering what I was going to do because I needed to help support my family, and I needed to work. And I remembered that teacher certificate that I got. So I started teaching not because I wanted to, but because I had to, and immediately fell in love with it. Just the passion of students, the newness of every day, being able to touch my own future, and the stories and the experience that my students brought to the classroom was refreshing for me. And so when our district, I taught social studies, and when our district got dollars for dropout prevention, I left the traditional classroom and taught dropout prevention. I'm proud of that experience because I believe when we label curriculum, sometimes students have this can't do attitude because they feel it's too rigorous for them. But I asked my principal if I could implement the same curriculum that was being implemented in our gifted classrooms with my dropout prevention students. And while she was reluctant, she allowed me to do that. And I'm extremely excited because never labeling it the gifted curriculum, never mentioning anything about the gifted classroom, my students excelled and in fact performed better than our gifted students did on our state assessment. And so that was an extremely proud moment of mine. But I remember complaining about my administration and how things were going at the school. And my mentor teacher said to me, rather than complaining about it, you go off and get your degree and do something about it. And so believing in lifelong learning, that's exactly what I did. I left on sabbatical and went off to Washington State University and intended to get my master's degree in educational leadership and return and apply and become an administrator in the district. Well, once I got there, I chose to stay and extend my sabbatical for a little while and worked and got my PhD while I was there. Came back to the district and I thought the natural progression from being a teacher in the dropout prevention program was to become an assistant principal at an alternative school. And so I did that. And some days I felt like I was bipolar because I was the Head Start director on the campus for 3- and 4-year-olds, but also the assistant principal over the middle and high school program, the students that were on our campus. And so just that was a lot, but refreshing because I got to deal with students early. And then I got students that did not make it in a traditional school and found non-traditional ways to reach those students and help them to excel. And so from there, I became an assistant principal and principal. Eventually, the superintendent recognized the work that I was doing as a principal and asked me to join the district office as district director of secondary curriculum. I did that kicking and screaming because I enjoyed being a principal and being around my students, but it was not a request. He made an appointment. And so that's how I was launched into district office administration. From there, I took a job with a private transformation firm where I helped transform schools and worked with leaders across the United States and down into the Virgin Islands, helping them to improve outcomes for students and increase graduation rates. Eventually becoming associate superintendent and being in the role that I'm in now. In all positions that I've been in, from the time that I was a teacher to the time that I became an associate superintendent, I found creative ways to provide programming that improved educational outcomes for students, improved graduation rates, but also found ways to support students' families. Because I know when we help build healthy families, we help build healthy students, and we reduce the trauma that our students experience outside of school, and they are able to attend to the lessons that we have for them. And so that's who I am, and that's what I'm about.
Wonderful. Okay, we're going to get started with these questions. We do have about 45 minutes. I think we're about 10 minutes in, so about 35 minutes remaining. I do want to remind everybody either watching or around the table that there should have been a candidate impression form once you logged in. Otherwise, they are available on the district website. We do ask that you complete those and then turn those in. The board does really value everybody's input, so please take the time to do so. Otherwise, Dr. Gadsden will go ahead and jump in with these questions. I'll give you a heads up when we're about halfway through and then about 10 minutes and 5 minutes remaining, just so we can balance time, and we'll get started. Very first question. Please share your understanding of shared governance in Salt Lake City School District. What do you see as potential strengths and weaknesses in this process? Describe past experiences you have had with collective decision-making.
So I promised to answer that question. One thing that I need to go back and visit, if you do a Google search of my name, you will see that in July of 2020, I was awarded a settlement with Henry County Schools in Georgia. And I just want to make sure that I'm transparent and I share with you. I was named sole finalist for superintendent in Henry County, Georgia. I would have been the first Black superintendent and the first superintendent outside of that district had I been appointed. At the time that the board named me sole finalist, there was some racist and other situations that happened in the district, and the district decided to rescind that offer. And so I tried to work with the board with everything that was available to me to get them to rectify what had happened. When that did not work, I sought outside assistance, and a settlement was given in my favor. And I just think it's important that I share that with you so that you know that part of my history as well before I move forward. So thank you for that. I do know that shared governance was implemented here in Salt Lake City School District in 1974. And I think the benefits of shared governance far outweigh any costs. It promotes and encourages innovation, and it allows school leaders and the collective decision makers to make decisions at the school level for what's best for students in that building. It's important because each school has its own individual personality, and nobody knows what's best for the staff and students in that building than ones who are closest to that. And so shared governance is important in that aspect. And it's my understanding that's how it's being implemented here in Salt Lake City School District. I've been involved with collective decision-making since I was first a principal. In Broward County, where I was first appointed principal, we had site-based management, and I loved the autonomy that it gave me to staff our building for the needs of our students. My first school was 97% Black, 3,500 students. The 3% that was not Black was in our IB program. And of the Black students, they were primarily from the Caribbean islands. Many of their parents had not had formal education, and so there were literacy and numeracy gaps in the students' struggling school. And so I was able to hire literacy and math coaches, writing coaches, intervention teachers, and other things that were not standard in our district, but because of site-based management, we were able to offer those programs to our students, as well as continue to support our advanced academic and more rigorous programs. Those interventions were extremely important to us because I was able to increase the number of students of color in our advanced academic programs and use our interventionists and coaches to support students who would not traditionally have been a part of those advanced academic programs. And had we not had the opportunity through shared governance and site-based management to hire that staffing, we never would have been able to offer those opportunities to our students. And so with collective decision-making, I know that you work to achieve consensus and that there are shared decisions. Everyone is accountable for the decisions, not a single person. It encourages conversation. It encourages respect for diverse perspectives and to hear all sides before a decision is finally made. And I think that that is a very effective way to lead schools. It definitely helped me as I started as a leader.
Second question. What do you feel is the role of teachers' associations, and what familiarity do you have with unions? What has your experience been like working with education associations in previous districts?
Can you repeat that? You were kind of low. I had a hard time hearing you.
Absolutely. What do you feel is the role of teachers' associations, and what familiarity do you have with unions? What has your experience been like working with education associations in previous districts?
So what I will say is, as a teacher myself, I was a part of the Palm Beach County Teachers Association. So I was a part of the teachers union. And when I became a principal, it wasn't popular with many of my colleagues, but I encouraged teachers to join the union because of the protections and the insurance coverage the union afforded to teachers. And so I believe for no other reason than the advocacy and the liability coverage that unions provide for teachers is a good idea, particularly in this very litigious environment, for teachers to be a part of unions and associations. My understanding of unions and associations is they serve as strong advocates for teachers, working to ensure teachers have working conditions that are conducive to them being the professionals that they are as they strive to provide the best and most effective first education to students. And so also unions and associations, as I know it, are keenly interested in making sure that districts function well and that districts are supportive of teachers who are on the ground level providing instruction to our most valuable resource, our students. And so I have worked with associations in right to work states in Georgia and Texas. I have always negotiated using interest-based negotiation, where we start with both sides sharing the solutions, or excuse me, the interests that they have, and then speaking about solutions, potential solutions. And I appreciate this way of negotiating because when my faculty council would bring me concerns from my teachers when I served as a principal, I always asked them to bring solutions. And I shared that it did not mean I was always going to select or go with that suggestion, but I know that you thought of more than just bringing a problem. You thought of creative ways to address and resolve the issue. And most times I could definitely go with it unless it went against district policy. But in any respect, when I could not accept the solution that was offered, I always provided a rationale for why I could not accept that solution. And so I have extensive experience on district negotiating teams and always operating for what's best for teachers in an interest-based way.
Third question. There is a shortage of substitutes, making it difficult or impossible for teachers to stay home when they are sick. Increasing the daily rate for substituting could improve the situation. What other solutions would you propose?
So I'm sure some of the suggestions that I'm going to propose have already been proposed, but you asked me the question, and so I'm going to share. Increasing pay is always a way to do that. But I think of also modifying the requirements. Think of when I was in Palm Beach County, we actually had two paths for our substitute teachers. One, if they had a bachelor's degree, and two, if they had at least 60 credit hours. The pay was differentiated because a teacher that had an associate's degree or 60 hours did not get the same daily rate as the substitute teacher that had a bachelor's degree. And that was one of the ways that we increased the number of subs that we had. Also, in my experience, I've been able to use para-educators to sub for teachers that were qualified, and on the day that on the day that a para-educator would sub for a teacher, their daily rate was increased from their daily rate when they serve as educators. But I would also say that you should try to tap into your pool of retired teachers and maybe find ways to give teachers incentives for unused sick days. And so those would be some of my suggestions.
Describe an example of your work as an administrator for substantive improvement of the teacher experience.
So I always work with data, and I believe in decisions being made at the lowest level of any organization involving those people that are going to be impacted by the decision. And so for substantive school improvement, I've always involved teachers in the development of professional learning plans and was very intentional not to inundate teachers with multiple initiatives or multiple programs, because you can't flood teachers with multiple things and expect them to be good with any. And so having a coherent professional learning plan is extremely important to build the capacity of teachers and allow them to actually put that professional learning into action. Also using formative assessments that are developed in collaboration with teachers allows us to provide teachers with real-time data to help inform their instruction and make modifications where they need to be. So you must have a robust system of formative assessments and a robust data system that gives teachers data in real time so that they're able to do something with it. I've also provided collaborative time for teachers. So we try to have common planning time so that teachers can collaborate, talk about student data, talk about strategies that have been successful, and even team where you might be successful with your group of students. And when you look at your data, 10% of your students didn't do well, 90% did well. And I might have had 40% of my students do well and 60% didn't. We would talk about what you did with your students, and maybe you take all of the students that did not do well, and I provide enrichment for the students that did well, so that collectively we get all of our students to mastery. And so always working with teachers, looking at data, really understanding students' needs, providing those formative assessments so that we know in real time what our students have mastered and what they still need are ways that I have worked to provide that substantive school improvement.
In our school communities, we have students who have to work, have childcare responsibilities, have language challenges, and have weighty family responsibilities. Our educational system must not be a one-size-fits-all. How would you enable more flexibility in our system to accommodate and consider the specific needs of each of our students, their families, and school communities?
So choice is extremely important to me. And right now, as a result of the pandemic, we have some students in hybrid learning, some students in remote learning. And I think that when we include students and parents as partners, we've got to work with them to make the decision that's best for them. Until it's determined that all students must return to school, I think it's important that we provide choice for families for what is best for them. Some are just scared. Some might not believe the science. Some have obligations and they need the student to stay home and learn. Whatever that reason is, it does not have to be shared with us, but we provide the learning model that matches the need for that family. I believe in providing credit for work-based learning for students. That's a way to provide elective credit for students as they work toward graduation, offering competency-based programs. If a student is able to demonstrate mastery, I don't think that we should require them to sit for a course that they're already demonstrating they mastered the course standard school. And we should look for flexibility to be able to award students credit for testing out of courses. So I really believe in that flexibility. And then offering a virtual school program with both synchronous and asynchronous instruction. Some students might have to work during the day and therefore they can't participate in a synchronous instructional program, but they are still able to access the work, complete the work, and receive credit for that work. And other students, again, just need to stay home and work remotely, and a virtual academy with synchronous instruction would allow that. And so those would be a couple of the suggestions that I would bring forward to offer that flexibility to students and families.
Wonderful. Based on our experience with remote learning, what do you see as opportunities for innovation going forward?
So again, being able to continue to offer options, choice to families and students. Something that I'm working on currently in my district, since we have found new capacity in being able to offer remote learning, is we're looking at some of our hard to schedule courses because of low student interest, to be able to offer courses to students concurrently across schools, so that students have the option of taking those courses that might not make in their individual school, but collectively we have enough students to make the coursework district-wide. Also, whenever there's a need to close school for any reason, happens frequently in Minnesota because of the cold weather and the snow, we found that remote learning has provided us an opportunity to continue instruction and not interrupt it as it had traditionally done. And something else that I've proposed, because professional learning is one of the areas that reports to me in my current district, is that we never have enough time to offer teachers professional learning. And because we have found the ability and the capacity in teachers to offer remote learning asynchronously to students, that we can actually offer more professional learning days for our teachers by providing asynchronous instructional days for students to be able to afford teachers that time. And so those are just a few of the things that I think of.
Describe your education philosophy and approach to your potential superintendency in Salt Lake City School District. Do you see yourself as someone who will steady the ship, or is there a program or project that may be outside the box that you would like to explore with Salt Lake City Schools?
So I respect the uniqueness of Salt Lake City School District and would not dare make any suggestions of what I would do without coming and listening and learning and really understanding what is actually happening here. I think you have some wonderful things, and one of the things that has attracted me to the district is that you've recognized that while you worked hard, you still have work to do. And I love the fact that that acknowledgement is there. It doesn't take anything from you as professionals. It doesn't say you didn't do your job. We just know we worked hard, but we are still working. We're going to continue to work. And so that's extremely important to me, because my philosophy on education is that it's our business to make sure that we're providing effective instruction for every student, every day, every year, to ensure that they are career and college ready. And some people will say career or college ready. I say career and college ready, because I have an expectation that we will prepare students for both. We will provide them with the career and technical education studies and opportunities, but we will also provide them with rigorous coursework so that when it's time, the students make the choice for themselves. We don't make that choice for them. And so often in tracking and the way that we schedule students, we make that choice early for our students. And I think that we have got to move away from that. An example of what I'm talking about in my district, I've just been able to work with my colleagues to get rid of a practice that was in the district prior to me getting there, but it impacted our high school students. In fourth grade, they gave an assessment that determined, the scores determined whether students could take advanced coursework in middle school. If they didn't make that score and they didn't get advanced studies in middle school, it impacted their ability to take advanced academic courses in high school. And students often were not able to get the math and science courses that they wanted because of that. That was tracking students to me starting in the 4th grade, and we needed to do away with that. I was able to convince my colleagues, and we got rid of that last year. And I'm very interested in seeing the impact that it's going to have on the students that are coming forward. We offer those advanced opportunities for students because I believe self-selection is a part of that process. Right now, we're providing scaffolding and intervention support for those students so that they are able to be successful in those programs. But I'm looking forward to the day that we do that earlier and not wait until they're in high school to provide that support so that they're successful in those advanced courses.
My apologies. We are at just about a minute after 4, so we have about 14 more minutes. And we do have some questions that were submitted through the chat. We'll go ahead and get started with those if you're okay with that.
Okay with it.
Right. All right. How are you going to ensure equity in employing educators in your district?
I think it's extremely important that we have a staff that is representative of our students. One of the ways you grow your own is for students to know that it's possible, and that's for them to see people that look like them doing the work. And that's not taking away from any of the current staff, but if we want to save our profession, it's important that we grow our own. And one of the ways is having a diverse staff that look like the students that we educate so that they know that it's possible. And so I would implement programs to travel even outside of the state to recruit staff that is diverse and look like our students. A program that I have been instrumental in implementing in my current district is we actually get to students early. We look at some of the top flyers in their junior year in college, and we meet with those students, we interview those students, and we offer those students unassigned contracts. So the benefit of a student being in their junior year, they haven't even reached their senior year, knowing that they have a job if they graduate in good standing and they get their license is powerful. And we're seeing an increase in the number of our teachers of color from implementing that program, but also knowing where to post. With staff of color, it's about word of mouth. And when you provide a quality working experience for all staff, word of mouth will spread that Salt Lake City School District treats us well. And this is a place where you want to be. And we'll see an increase in the number of staff as well that is representative of our student body.
Okay. Please give a specific example of how you have created a safe space for LGBT students in your district.
Yeah, I love that question because we actually have a situation, and Salt Lake City School District is ahead of where we were on this, where we had students that wanted to be recognized by their name, not their legal name, but the name they chose for themselves. Our district did not have the capacity, nor did we have the policy that allowed that. And so I go out and I visit students because I like to be on the ground and hear what our students have to say and what's going to make the experience better for our students. Because if they're worried about stuff, they can't attend to what's going on in the classroom. And that was stuff to me. And so I listened to students and found that it was a problem across our district. And so worked with students to lobby our board for a change in policy. Drafted policy that we were recommending and afforded them the opportunity to present it to our board. They presented, the board approved, and just the look and the satisfaction on the face of students that they did it for themselves and nobody else had to do it for them was extremely rewarding to me. Now we are able to recognize a student's chosen name in our student information system so that if there's a sub or whoever their teacher is knows their preferred name and are able to call them by their preferred name. That gives them a sense of belonging. That helps them to know that they are respected and valued, and therefore can attend and focus on the work that is being provided to them.
About 10 minutes left and just a couple more questions in the chat. Besides the factor of graduate school, why have you worked in so many different states as an educator? Constant movement can sometimes imply an inability to work well with others in the long term, or that you will move after a short stint in an area for another place for better employment incentives.
Most definitely. So, a great question. You will see that the majority of my career is in Palm Beach County School District. As I shared with you, because I wanted to make a difference for students, I actually accepted a job with a private transformation company that had been started by the chief academic officer who was in Palm Beach County. So I didn't go looking for a job. The chief academic officer recognized the work that I had done that got the superintendent to move me into the district office in the curriculum position. At that time, we were working off of school improvement grants that were being provided by the Obama administration. When those grants sunsetted, rather than continuing to chase grants, I decided to return to a school district. Happened to be at a conference for dropout prevention and was recruited by the Austin School District. Went there and worked with the superintendent, who after 2 years of me being in the district decided to accept a superintendency in Atlanta. And because of the work that I had done with her in Austin and the results that I was able to collaboratively get, because it was not just me, it was a team of folks, she asked me to join her in Atlanta. And so I left Austin only because the superintendent in Austin asked me to join her in Atlanta. In Atlanta, the chief academic officer, who was my supervisor in Atlanta, took a superintendency in Minnesota. And after being there for a year, because of some of the problems and issues that he was dealing with there and the experience and what he knew I was able to do and the relationships that I was able to build, he asked me to join him in Minnesota. And so I don't jump jobs just because I apply for jobs. It's because people have recognized the work that I've done. And each of those moves has been in association with someone that I knew in the district that asked me to join them on projects or in their districts.
Okay. And last question. Our district has a severe lack of Black and Brown educators and administrators for that matter. Recognizing the immense value of a diverse faculty and the majority of our students are students of color, how would you prioritize recruiting Black, Indigenous, and people of color to work in our district?
So some of that work that I shared with you, actually meeting with students in their junior year, I would actually want to have some of our recruiting staff join me at some of the historically Black colleges and universities to recruit some of those students. I want to make sure that there are no barriers. In Minnesota, one of the things that I've been lobbying for, Minnesota makes it very difficult for experienced educators to get licensed in the state. I have a PhD, have my superintendent's license in other states. And when I joined Carleton in Minnesota at his request, I almost left after the first year because the state was pretty much asking me to do a graduate degree over again. And I felt I had experience, I had licensure, and I wasn't going to do that. People that I asked me to join, asked to join me in Minnesota because of the work that they had done chose not to come. Teachers chose not to come because when they applied to Minnesota, they made it difficult for them to get licensed. So we've got to make sure the state does not have barriers that prevent staff of color who are outside of the state to actually apply and receive licensure in the state. And so I would want to work with our HR staff to make sure that that's not the case. And then once staff is hired, creating affinity groups, mentoring and coaching programs so that teachers feel supported and they'll want to stay in our district because they're not here alone. They're actually here and being supported.
Wonderful. All right, it's 4:10 your time, 5:10 my time. We are all done with questions. So thank you for those that are participating online and those that are sitting around the table that I cannot see. And more importantly, thank you, Dr. Gadsden, for your time. We really appreciate it. And I'll see you in about 10 minutes.
All right.